It's the year 2050. Advances in technology have made the world more interconnected than ever before. Nearly everything is digital, from how we work and go to school to how we socialize and shop. While many applaud the convenience and efficiency of this digital life, concerns around privacy and data security have also grown. Megan is a 17-year-old high school student living in a large city. She, like most people her age, has been using devices and the internet her whole life. She can hardly imagine a world that wasn't so digitally connected. One morning, Megan is running late to school. She quickly gets ready, grabs her smartphone and heads out the door. As she walks, personalized ads pop up on her phone based on her online activities and conversations with friends. At school, she's reminded to study for an upcoming math test based on her learning management system, analyzing her grades. During lunch, she laughs at memes her friends send that use inside jokes from her private chat history. While Megan has appreciated the convenience of a personalized, digital experience, she has also grown uneasy with how much private data she seems to be giving up. But she isn't sure what to do about it, since using online services in her smartphone seems impossible to avoid in 2050. That afternoon, Megan's class is learning about data privacy laws and regulations throughout history. Her teacher explains key events that shaped how private data is handled today. Scandals like the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data breach, sweeping policy changes like the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and the rise of digital ethics standards, enforced by new oversight bodies. While privacy risks have evolved, the teacher says, legal protections and transparency around data use have as well. Megan is surprised to learn how many rights she actually has when it comes to her personal information. This gives Megan an idea. After school, she sets aside an hour to review the privacy policy and settings of each app and online service she uses. She adjusts a few settings on her smartphone to limit ad tracking and sharing of her user data. She opts out of personalized recommendations for some services, so her chat history won't influence the content she sees. She requests a report from her school district about what student data they collect and how it's used. The changes are small, but Megan immediately feels more in control. She's pleased to see ads become less eerily targeted. Her chats with friends now stay private, instead of shaping the content she interacts with online. Once Megan knows how and where to look, it's easier than she expected to exercise her rights over her personal data. A few weeks later, Megan is surprised when her math test is delayed a day. Her teacher explains that the learning management system suffered a cyber attack in which student data was breached. Megan worries what information may have been compromised and how it could be used. She learns that new regulations require companies to report data breaches within 72 hours and notify affected customers. The school district sends a notice about the breach and their response plan. While concerning, Megan is relieved there are at least transparency practices in place for incidents like this. Megan follows up by contacting the company that makes the learning management software. She asks what specific protections and monitoring they have in place to detect future attacks. The customer support representative points Megan to resources on their cybersecurity practices. Megan is happy to learn they encrypt student data, monitor systems for threats, and regularly update software, all required by law for companies handling sensitive data. A few days later, Megan is pleased to see a message from the learning management company announcing new security measures as a result of the breach. They have implemented multi-factor authentication for teachers logging into the system, and further tightened controls around which employee roles can access student data. While Megan had initially felt frustrated and powerless in the face of privacy risks, she realized she had more control than she thought. Between personal settings, corporate practices required by regulation, and ability to pressure companies after a breach, Megan is able to exercise her rights over private information. She has a new appreciation for how far data protection has come. Megan's classmate Akash, however, has had a very different experience. His family is low income and can't afford the latest smartphones and gadgets. He tries to access free Wi-Fi hotspots around the city to work on projects or chat with friends online. But the public Wi-Fi provider requires personal data and full access to devices in exchange for service. Akash feels he has no choice but to agree to the invasive terms if he wants to participate in normal high school activities online. He doesn't have the money to pay for private internet access at home, and his older smartphone model doesn't have the latest security protections or options to limit data gathering. Akash is frustrated that simply because of his economic status, he has to give up control of his personal information. He worries about what is being collected and how it could be misused. He also feels left behind as his peers talk about customizing privacy settings that aren't even available to him. After a heated class discussion one day about disparities in data access, Akash's teacher, Mr. Graham, decides to change lessons plans for the next month. He thinks it's important to not just teach students about privacy risks, but equip them with skills to manage their data exposure. The first step is awareness, he explains, but we need real solutions. Mr. Graham guides students in learning basic cybersecurity practices like strong password hygiene, securing devices when using public networks, and being alert to phishing scams. He teaches them to monitor their digital footprint and routinely clear cookies, browsing history, and cache data. But he also takes it a step further. Mr. Graham partners with a local nonprofit focused on digital access and privacy rights. Together, they show students how to use virtual private networks, VPNs, and encryption tools as added layers of security, especially on public networks. And they lobby device makers and software developers to make these options more accessible. The nonprofit also helps Akash and other low-income students upgrade to more secure devices and accounts, not locked down by old terms of service. With donations of refurbished phones and laptops equipped with the latest protections, students like Akash finally have full control over their privacy settings. At the end of the month, Akash feels empowered in his ability to manage his data exposure, even as a non-paying user dependent on public Wi-Fi. Thanks to his teacher's special unit, he now has the awareness, tools, and devices needed to exercise his digital privacy rights, regardless of economic status. Megan, Akash, and their classmates exit Mr. Graham's class equipped to assert their rights and thoughtfully navigate trade-offs as citizens of an increasingly digital world. They understand transparency around data practices and breaches can empower users, but also that access to secure devices, accounts, and networks is essential for equality of opportunity in 2050's digital landscape. Megan reflects on how her outlook shifted from helpless to hopeful once she understood her options to control personal data exposure. Akash's frustrating experience showed her how digital disparities can still limit those options, though. She is heartened to see companies, lawmakers, and grassroots advocates all pushing the privacy conversation forward. The interplay between emerging technologies and appropriate safeguards will continue, Megan knows. But with citizens like her informed and engaged, she trusts society will keep evolving protections to match the digital world's ever-changing risks and capabilities. She heads home after class feeling cautiously optimistic about the future of data rights. Subscribe.